Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel.
I had to put on my reaching hat. Hear me out.
Hello and welcome. You've probably heard of Scientology. In fact, every 6 seconds, someone searches the question, what is Scientology? There's a lot of talk about us, and we get it. People are curious. Well, we want to answer your questions, because frankly, whatever you have heard, if you haven't heard it from us, I can assure you, we are not what you expect.
I mean, lasers? Really? To change the weather?
That's right. Well, as Mark Twain once famously said, everyone complains about the weather, but no one ever does anything about it. Well, instead of doing a rain dance, we physicists are firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to actually precipitate rain clouds and actually bring down lightning bolts. This is potentially a game changer.
America. The medicine's called Factor VIII. It was an injection medicine that was used for hemophiliacs, mostly children. Children had been born with an incurable disease.
Hold on, Mike. So, hold on. So you're telling me that Bayer knew that this drug was infected with the AIDS virus. They yanked it from the market in America, and then they dumped it in markets overseas?
One time they wanted me to find out if there was such a thing as a poison that was undetectable, especially one that seemed to mimic a heart attack, that would kill someone, but it would appear that they had a heart attack. I did find such a thing.
Does this pistol fire the dart?
Yes, it does, Mr. Chairman.
Our funeral pyre awaits the corpse of care. Bring fire!
Thank you for clicking. For those wondering, I have clipped on a flower with a googly eye. In case I need a spare eye. Before I get into it, I just need to give everybody the update that I know you guys want. Diesel! Okay, he doesn't care. Nolly! Nolly! Okay, literally my dogs don't care. My dogs have both of their cones off. So today we're gonna be talking about creepy conspiracies that turned out to be true. I know that in the world of conspiracies, it's a lot of hearsay, speculation. So I didn't want to do just like a video talking about crazy conspiracies, but I wanted to talk about the ones that turned out to be true because it's more interesting. Before I begin, you guys know I have to give my thanks to my returning subscribers, old and new. Thank you guys so much. Especially my last video was very well received. I do appreciate that. It was a very depressing video for me to make. Some of you even noticed that I seemed a little bit like affected by it, and I was. So that's kind of why I wanted to do a bit more fun video. Fun, I mean, and if you are new here, hi, this is me. I wear a tinfoil hat, usually not with the eye, and I talk about true crime and conspiracies. And today we are all about conspiracies. It's not going to be as depressing as my last video, but well, you'll see. With all that being said, let's jump down the rabbit hole, okay? The theory that the Illuminati spelled backwards takes you to the official NSA website. The NSA is the National Security Agency, and the website is NSA.GOV. And for whatever reason, you could try this with me. I've screen recorded myself doing it. I'll show it right now. ITANIMULLI.com, and then press enter. It takes you to the NSA website. I don't know if this is something that like could be hacked and somebody from the outside who has nothing to do with the NSA can sort of make that happen, or what it is. I have no idea why that is or what that's about. There's a million theories about, none of which I can prove, so I won't even mention them. However, It is a fact that when you type this and you press this, it leads you there. Do with that information what you will. I'm just letting you know that's a conspiracy theory that turned out to be true. I actually found out about this theory that it was true in college. For those of you who don't know, I double majored in political science and history. Yes, I'm a nerd. The theory: the CIA has created a heart attack gun. This is true. Mary Embry, she began her career in the CIA as a secretary. Yes, darling, secretary. For the Central Intelligence Agency.
One time they wanted me to find out if there was such a thing as a poison that was undetectable, especially one that seemed to mimic a heart attack, that would kill someone, but it would appear that they had a heart attack. I did find such a thing.
Have you brought with you some of those devices which would have enabled the CIA to use this poison for? We have indeed, for killing people. Don't point it at me. I wonder if Mitch, can you roll that over? Now, does this pistol fire the dart?
Yes, it does, Mr. Chairman. The round thing at the top is obviously the sight. The rest of it is what is practically a normal 45, although it's special. However, it works by electricity. There's a battery in the handle, and it fires a small dart.
So that when it fires silently?
Almost silently, yes. Very little.
What range does it have?
100 meters. 100 meters, I believe, about 100 yards, 100 meters.
About 100 meters range.
Right.
And the dart itself, when it strikes the target, does the target know that he's been hit and about to die?
That depends, Mr. Chairman, on the particular dart used. There are different kinds of these flechettes that were used in various weapon systems, and a special one was developed which potentially would be able to enter the target without perception.
The mechanism is, I'll read it to you. It involved the freezing of shellfish toxin mixed with water to form a frozen dart, which would then be fired from the heart attack gun. Once inside the body, the poison would then dissolve into the person's bloodstream and cause a heart attack. The poison would not show up in the autopsy. The official cause of death would therefore be ruled as a heart attack due to natural causes. According to the CIA, the weapon was developed to allow the CIA to commit assassinations that could never be traced back to them. Like a world leader or like the head of some organization, terrorist or something, I don't know, something. If they mysteriously die from a heart attack, I'm gonna be like, heart attack gun, heart attack gun, heart attack gun. So let's move on to the next one. The theory. The food industry shapes nutrition science. You know when you're like watching the news, the local news usually, and you hear a headline that says, pizza is a vegetable. Diet Coke can help you lose weight more than water. Oatmeal keeps you fuller for longer. You hear these kind of like studies, and a lot of times it'll be like one study and then another study comes up a week or a month or a year later that contradicts this study, and then another one, and you're like, what is going on? Well, I'll tell you. Oftentimes, these studies on specific food and drink are funded by the very company that produces that food and drink or drink that is being studied. Do you get what I'm saying? Whenever there's like a new study, I will always go to the bottom to try to see who funded the study. Is it the beverage industry? And then I'll look at it through that lens to factor in any sort of bias that there could be in the study. But let's talk about some specifics. There was a study that came out that said, children who eat candy weigh less than children who don't. Guess who funded that study? The makers of Butterfingers, Hershey, and Skittles. Hot oatmeal breakfast keeps you fuller for longer. Who do you think funded that study? Quaker Oats. There are tons of examples. Next time you hear a study like that on the news, I want you to remember this video and think to yourself, who funded this study? The next theory is Bayer medicine knowingly caused AIDS. Now this is true and so disturbing.
Welcome to the show. We appreciate you being on tonight.
Thanks for the invitation, Joe.
Okay, let's talk about the rat of the week. Why is Bayer Corporation the rat of the week?
Internal documents show that after this company positively, absolutely knew that they had a medication that was infected with the AIDS virus, they took the product off the market in the U.S. and then they dumped it in France, Europe, Asia, and Latin America. They had to figure out a way, Joe, to make a profit on a product that they could not sell in America. So they made a huge profit. They dropped the product in Japan, Spain, and France. By the way, Joe, government officials in France that allowed that to happen actually had to go to prison for it. In America, not one corporate executive for this company has been indicted or even criminally investigated by our Justice Department.
Why not? What, you're telling me that these people that dumped this AIDS-tainted blood in foreign countries, who killed children, have not been taken to task in the United States?
It's worse than that. The U.S. government allowed it to happen. The FDA allowed this to happen. And now the government is completely looking the other way. Thousands of innocent hemophiliacs have died from the AIDS virus. And not only they're dying, their family members are dying because they're becoming infected with it.
There are even internal memos within Bayer where they discuss the possibility, the moral implications of using that medication. And I'll read you a quote. Can we in good faith continue to ship non-heat treated coagulation products to Japan? A company task force asked in February 1985, fearing that some of its plasma donors could have been HIV positive. The answer to that is yes. They did in good faith do that, and they ended up having to pay like $600 million in lawsuits, settlements to victims of this whole debacle. Okay, let's move on to the next theory. The Church of Scientology infiltrated the US government and blackmailed the IRS into getting its tax-exempt status. This is true, and this story is insane. Okay, the church is very wealthy. The Church of Scientology, as they call themselves, are very, very wealthy. They have many real estate holdings. They own a yacht in the Caribbean. The founder, L. Ron Hubbard, has a very interesting beliefs, shall we say. He believes that humans are clusters of spirits that have been trapped in ice and banished to Earth 75 million years ago by Xenu, the ruler of the 26-planet Galactic Confederation. Duh. We are tainted, we are banished, which means we need cleansing. And fortunately, Scientology has just the perfect method to cleanse us. It is known as auditing. Have you heard of that? And it's not the IRS's version of auditing, although the connection with IRS and this term makes things very weird. They have some technology, if you want to call it that, a device that they claim is similar to a lie detector known as a e-meter, which a lot of people believe is just like a bunch of mumbo jumbo. Really. IRS records indicate that in the 1990s, the church was earning about $300 million a year from this auditing that they were charging people for. At first, Scientology was tax exempt, like a religion, right? But then it changed and it was not exempt anymore because the church's activities were too commercial, and that, quote, they proved conclusively that the church was operated for the benefit of L. Ron Hubbard and his family. But what ended up happening was that the church refused to acknowledge this revocation and they withheld their tax payments from the IRS. Obviously, the IRS didn't like that. And so then it classified the Church of Scientology as a dissident group. That resulted in the Church of Scientology launching Operation Snow White. In a document labeled Secret, L. Ron Hubbard outlined his strategy for Operation Snow White. He said that he wanted to root out all false and secret files held by governments around the world regarding Scientology. Attack is necessary to an effective defense, he said. Operation Snow White was executed by the Guardian Office, which is like a section of the Church of Scientology. It was run by L. Ron Hubbard's wife. Her name is Mary Sue. Their members of this Guardian Office were actually trained to lie, but they didn't call it lying. They called it to outflow false data effectively. Operation Snow White was brazen in its tactics. They implanted people in the IRS. They would have somebody be the assistant of the guy who was in charge of deciding which organization was tax exempt. They would have people working at the front desk. They put wires in there. They had spies. It was like a whole thing. This conspiracy got exposed, however, by one of the members. He basically confessed everything to the government. L. Ron Hubbard's wife, Mary Sue, and 10 others, but not L. Ron Hubbard himself. He didn't get indicted, but they all got in trouble and got indicted. They got prison sentences, but their tax exempt status would change, and they would change in a very peculiar way. L. Ron Hubbard died, but his tax war did not die with him. David Miscavige, the creepy Scientology guy in my intro, yeah, he became the leader and he fought the good tax fight and he won. We only have the Scientology's version of events on this incident because the IRS does not want to talk about it. David Miscavige and Marty Rathburn, who was another senior official, were walking. They had a few hours to kill or something, and they were walking down the street when they walked by the official IRS building in Washington. And they had this idea that they're just going to walk in, they're going to ask to speak to the guy in charge, and according to them, it happened. They said to the secretary, we want to speak to, who's the guy in charge? The commissioner, Mr. Goldberg. They wanted to speak to the commissioner, and they told the secretary, we don't have an appointment, but if you tell the commissioner that it's us here, we guarantee you he's going to want to talk to us. And according to them, he did want to talk to them, and that's what happened. They went in and they had a meeting with him. Marty said, quote, let's resolve everything. This is insane. It's reached insane levels. Mr. Goldberg is said to have responded in a very strange manner. He created a special 5-member organization. It's a working group, and they were assigned to resolve this dispute. And that is weird because there's actually another department, let's say, of the IRS that's meant to deal with this tax exempt issue and make these decisions, but it wasn't given to them. It was a special, very small group that dealt with this, which already was strange. Come to find out, the reason why this happened is because the IRS was essentially being blackmailed. Church of Scientology spent millions of dollars hiring private investigators who went in and tried to find incriminating information on all these IRS officials. They found one official who owned property. They went in, they sent a private investigator to the property. They found that he had health code violations and things like that. And then they went back and were like, you have violations. Another guy, they found something. They basically found compromising information on all these people who made these decisions, basically harassed them with this information. They even created those spies that they had put in. They made them create a whistleblower group and make fake whistleblower claims on the IRS, which actually went so far as to be heard in Congress, and it was totally fake, and it put just so much pressure on the IRS, and it didn't matter if it wasn't true, just the public perception was just so bad, they wanted it to go away. So when David Miscavige just waltzed in and said, let's make a deal, supposedly they were backed in such a corner that they essentially took the deal. It was so obvious that they had other reasons to take this deal, because during this negotiation, the Supreme Court actually ruled in favor of the IRS not giving the church the tax exempt status, but they continued negotiations anyway, because it wasn't about the legality of it, it was about their personal things being exposed. At that point, it was self-preservation. On October 13, 1993, it was official. the Church of Scientology was declared a tax-exempt religious organization by the IRS. Let's move on to the next theory. An elite group of men who run the world have a wild party in the woods where they have a ritual with a mock human sacrifice. And that is true. Now, I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's called Bohemian Grove. It's a campground in Northern California with all these beautiful redwoods. This campground is the site of an annual gathering, shall we say, of the most elite, powerful, and it's a men's only group, no women allowed. Presidents have been there, and they usually go there right before they become president, which makes a lot of people have theories. Strange things happen in Bohemian Grove. There's a huge wooden owl, and they do a mock human sacrifice, which they burn in effigy to the owl, and then they burn the owl, and then they say a lot of weird stuff. And there's footage of this, and I'm going to show it to you.
We successfully infiltrated, with the help of some of the locals and Channel 4, World of Wonder, British television that teamed up with us. And I successfully infiltrated through the Secret Service, through the guards, through the Sonoma County Sheriff's Department. We were inside 4 hours. That's only 1 day out of the 2 weeks that they meet there. It's hard to even describe it with words. And I hope that our hidden cameras can give you at least a small piece of what I witnessed.
A thirsty man. Look out. Reagan was a turning point for us. Didn't realize at the time it was. And anytime I shoot. Turning point for us. Oh, really? So many liberal Democrats in their time to turn things around. Morning.
It was all live?
Oh, is that right?
No,
it's probably as accurate as you know. Yeah.
Before the cremation of care, all the Bohemian Club members began a massive feast of revelry.
He's so pissed off at
As we sat there in the darkness, not knowing what we were about to see in the gathering crowd, suddenly, across the small lake, we saw a carriage with men in black and brown cloaks, robes, in front and in back, bearing a bound body.
The owl is in his leafy temple. Let all within the grove be reverent before him. Lift up your heads, O ye trees, and be ye lifted up, ye everlasting spires. For behold, here is Bohemian shrine, and holy are the pillars of this house. Weaving spiders, come not near. Hail, Bohemians, with the ripple of waters, song of birds, such music as inspires the sinking soul, do we invite you into midsummer's joy. Shake off your sorrows with the city's dust, and cast to the winds the cares of life. Let memory bring back the well-loved names of gallant friends who knew and loved this grove. Dear boon companions of the long ago. Aye, let them join us in this ritual. Bohemians and priests, the desperate call of heavy hearts is answered by the power of your fellowship. Dull care is slain. His body has been brought yonder from the funeral pyre to the joyous pipings of a funeral march. Our funeral pyre awaits the corpse of care.
There we go.
Here you have the boatman, his face was painted up like a skull, bringing the bound body across the water.
Thus buried across the shadowy tide, in all the ancient majesty of death, dull care, arch enemy of beauty. Not for thee the tender tribute or the restful grave. Fire shall have its will of thee, and all the winds make merry with thy dust. Bring fire!
When will ye learn that me ye cannot slay? Year after year ye burn me in this grove, lifting your puny shouts of triumph to the stars. But when again ye turn your faces to the marketplace, do ye not find me waiting as of old? Fools to dream ye conquer care.
Nay, thou mocking spirit, it is not all a dream. We know thou waitest for us when this our sylvan holiday has ended. We shall meet thee and fight thee as of old, and some of us prevail against thee, and some thou shalt destroy. But this too we know. Year after year within this happy grove, our fellowship bans thee for a space. Thy malevolence which would pursue us here has lost its power under these friendly trees. So shall we burn thee once again this night, and in the flames that eat thine effigy, we shall read the sign, Midsummer sets us free.
Ye shall burn me once again. Not with these flames, which hither ye have brought from regions where I reign. Ye fools and priests, I spit upon your fire.
Thou, Grayson of all mortal wisdom, thou of Bohemia, we beseech thee, grant us thy counsel.
If it be kindled
detested care, be gone. Once more, we banish thee. Be gone, dull care. Fire shall have its will of thee. Be gone, dull care. And all the winds make merry with thy dust. Hail, fellowship's eternal flame. Once again, midsummer sets us free.
Let me tell you some presidents that we know attended Bohemian Grove. Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan, and they both attended before entering the White House. Theodore Roosevelt was granted honorary membership when he became president of the United States. Hoover joined the Bohemian Club. They say that Hoover treasured his membership and valued it so much and was very involved in recruiting new members. So it was actually Hoover who invited Nixon to Bohemian Grove in 1950. And at this time, Nixon was a congressman. He wasn't president yet. Hoover and some of his alumni from Stanford actually formed their own camp at Bohemian Grove. Their campground name was Caveman Camp. You know who else was at Caveman Camp? Eisenhower. 2 years after this meeting, Nixon and Eisenhower would make up the Republican ticket in 1952. So speaking of Nixon and Bohemian Grove, he actually was recorded on tape, you know, the Watergate scandal, all those tapes. There is a tape where he discusses Bohemian Grove and he talks about it in a very negative way. He uses a slur, so I'm going to warn you, there's a derogatory slur that's going to be uttered by him in this video.
Let's look at Northern California. You understand? Yeah. You know what San Francisco is just gone. It's clear over. I know that, but it isn't just down in the randy part of town. But the upper class in San Francisco is that way. The Bohemian Grove that I attend on time to time, the Easterners and the others that come there. But it is the most faggy goddamn thing you will ever imagine in San Francisco crowd because it's just terrible. I mean, I don't want to shake hands with anybody in San Francisco.
So I did some research on the recent things because this information was kind of old, and it seems like the more time passes, the more secretive they're getting, which is weird considering like the internet and camera phones. But I couldn't find out about like recent presidents or what was going on. It was very hard to find. However, I was able to find that they did have a meeting in 2019. In 2020, there has been no record of a meeting. With the pandemic and stuff, maybe they did it through Zoom from their luxury pandemic bunkers. Let's move on to the next theory. The government has and is developing methods of mind control. You see, the program was called MK Ultra. It all started on July 4th, Independence Day, 1954, in San Antonio, Texas. 3-year-old Sherry Horton had gone missing around midnight near Lackland Air Force Base. Her parents had left her and her brother outside of a bar while they went in for a few drinks, and then when they came back, the little girl was missing. And so they were panicked and they formed a search party with all the people that were around. Within an hour of forming the search party, the group found a vehicle in a gravel pit, and Sherry's underwear was hanging from the door of the vehicle. At around that time, a man named Jimmy Shaver wandered out of the woods. He seemed dazed, confused, disoriented, and he was shirtless and covered in scratches and blood. He just kind of stood there and allowed the bystanders to sort of grab him and walk him towards the edge of the highway. The only thing he said was, "What's going on here?" Everybody said he didn't seem drunk, but he seemed to be under the influence of something. Then, unfortunately, they searched around the area of the vehicle and they found little Sherry's body. Her neck was broken and her legs had been torn open, and she had been like violated in the worst way. Okay? This is where the story gets weird, because before they could even put him in jail, a constable from a nearby precinct came over and said that he had orders from military police that said that they wanted to assume custody of Shaver. When the Air Force Marshal left, the police started interrogating Shaver. They interrogated him all the way through the night till the next morning. He, the whole time, denied any knowledge of what had happened. He couldn't remember anything. His wife showed up. He didn't recognize her. But then, when the Air Force Marshal, the same one, when he came back again and privately interrogated Shaver again, Shaver totally changed his story. He said, "Oh, yeah, I must have done it. I did do it." He signed a confession, he was charged, and he was arrested. But then after that, 2 months later, Shaver still couldn't remember anything. And that's when Dr. West comes into the picture. And Dr. West is very important here, okay? Dr. West was assigned with determining whether Shaver was insane at the time of the murder. So Dr. West was trying to clear Shaver's amnesia, and he gave him an injection of sodium pentothal, aka truth serum. While Shaver was under, he admitted to the killing. But it's very important to note that the tape recorded testimony of this confession, there's a weird point where the tape ends and then you don't, like, it's not recording, and then when it picks back up again, right then is when Shaver admits to it. So what happened off the record that made Shaver confess as soon as the tape recorder was turned back on, we don't know. We might never know, but I do think that's important to know. In 1958, at the age of 33, Jimmy Shaver was executed. He maintained his innocence the whole time. According to newly surfaced papers from West's archives, the psychiatrist had some of the clearest, most nefarious ties of any scientist to the CIA's Project MK-Ultra. West's files, especially his correspondence with the CIA's longtime poisons expert, Sidney Gottlieb, shed new light on one of the most infamous projects in the agency's history. MK-Ultra was, as the New York Times put it, a secret 25-year, $25 million effort by the CIA to learn how to control the human mind. Not only did they violate US law and international law, but they also violated the CIA's own charter, which prohibited domestic activity. Now, this part is straight out of a movie, okay? Talk about a cover-up. The journalist for this article was trying to find out if Shaver was in these experimental studies that were being done at the Air Force in Lackland. So he went to get the official records, and he was told officially, we don't have a record of him. He was never part of the experiments. No. However, when this same journalist spoke to the archivist said all the records for patients in 1954 had been maintained with one exception. The file for the last names beginning with SA through ST had vanished. That means that this is the exact file that his name would have been in if he was part of the experiments that they're claiming he wasn't a part of. You get what I'm saying? What the hell was going on? Remember Sidney Gottlieb? He's also known as the poisoner in chief. He's also known as the Black Sorcerer. This guy supposedly drove hours to the headquarters to have things shredded. As much as we know about it, there's actually way more that was destroyed. So who knows what those documents contained. When records were available for the Senate during these committee hearings, right, they were heavily redacted, and then the people who were brought in to testify had really bad memories all of a sudden. I want to read you another part of this article because it's straight out of a movie. It's a really good article. I highly recommend it. One day, among a batch of research papers on hypnosis in West's archives, there I found letters between West and his CIA handler, Sherman Grifford. The cover name, according to John Mark's The Search for the Manchurian Candidate, for Sidney Gottlieb. That's who I just mentioned tried to destroy the records. The letters picked up midstream with no prologue or preliminaries. The first was dated June 11th, 1953, a mere 2 months after Project MKUltra started, when West was chief of the psychiatric service at the air base at Lackland. Addressing Gottlieb as SG, West outlined the experiments he proposed to perform using a combination of psychotropic drugs and hypnosis. He began with a plan to discover, quote, the degree to which information can be extracted from presumably unwilling subjects through hypnosis alone or in combination with certain drugs, possibly with subsequent amnesia for the interrogation and or alteration of the subject's recollection of the information he formerly knew. Another item proposed honing techniques for implanting false information into particular subjects or for inducing in them specific mental disorders. He had hoped to create couriers who would carry a long and complex message embedded secretly in their minds and to study the induction of trance states by drugs. Needless to say, West added, the experiments must eventually be put to test in practical trials in the field. To this end, he asked Gottlieb for, quote, some sort of carte blanche. Who would these guinea pigs be, right? Well, according to these letters, the guinea pigs would be, quote, basic airmen, volunteers, patients, and others, possibly including prisoners in the local stockade. Now, as we know, Jimmy Shaver was a basic airman. The official response came on a letterhead that said Chemrophil Associates, which is, according to this article by The Intercept, it is a front company he used to correspond with MKUltra subcontractor. My good friend, I had been wondering whether your apparent rapid and comprehensive grasp of our problems could possibly be real. You have indeed developed an admirably accurate picture of exactly what we are after. For this, I am deeply grateful. In 1956, Dr. West reported back to the CIA about his very successful findings. In a 1956 paper titled The Psychophysiological Studies of Hypnosis and Suggestibility, he claimed to have achieved the impossible. He knew how to replace true memories with false ones in human beings without their knowledge. When the program was being investigated by these congressional committees, they found an internal memo that was so incriminating. The CIA's Inspector General commented on MKUltra in an internal memo and said, quote, precautions must be taken to conceal these activities from the American public in general. The knowledge that the agency is engaging in unethical and illicit activities would have serious repercussions. It was 162 different secret projects that were indirectly financed by the CIA but were contracted out to various universities, research foundations, and similar institutions. In all, at least 80 institutions and 185 researchers participated in MKUltra. End of story? Not quite. This whole MKUltra thing has gained a new life. Oddly enough, it's in reference to celebrities. These rumors come from weird, instances where celebrities are thought to be glitching, if you will. For example, Cardi B.
I feel nervous, a little bit overwhelmed. I feel a little shaky. I don't know what's wrong with me. No, but it's good. It's good. It's good. It's good. You look good. It's a picture. Look great.
There's another video of the weatherman, Al Roker.
You're high.
Yes, like they say in Catholic school, leave room for the Holy Ghost. Anyway, there is a lot of memories today, actually. It's a big day in music history.
35 years ago today, Elvis Presley passed away, the king of rock and roll. And as Mark Cohn says in his great song, Walking in Memphis, there's a pretty little thing waiting for the king.
Now, in my opinion, I'm not so sure about that? I don't think so. When you have something that's based in truth and you try to stretch it onto something else, a lot of people will believe it. Let's move on to the next theory.
The weather can be manipulated and militarized.
So there was a hurricane called Hurricane Flora that happened in the 60s, and Fidel Castro accused the United States of manipulating the weather to create this hurricane. Years later, in the 70s, rumors came back up again about meteorological warfare, weather war. And these rumors came back again during the Vietnam War. Nixon's Secretary of Defense came out and said, quote, "We have never engaged in that type of activity over North Vietnam." 2 years later, after the statement was made, they had to actually admit that they were engaging in these activities. So they admitted to using a technology known as cloud seeding.
From up here, they look soft and harmless. But these clouds can cause disaster in the Indonesian capital. So the government has ordered the military to carry out a full frontal assault. With salt. Tons and tons of salt. It's called cloud seeding.
These soldiers have found a new enemy now. They're fighting clouds. By throwing 5,000 kilograms of salt into this tube, they hope that the rain will fall before it reaches Jakarta. The salt will absorb water, which makes the raindrops bigger and therefore heavier. And that's why they hope that the rain will fall before it causes a flood.
And they admitted to using it over the Ho Chi Minh Trail. That is a trail that was used by the Viet Cong to transport supplies and things like that during the war. So it was very crucial to the Viet Cong's success for them to have access to that trail. Therefore, the United States wanted to hinder that. And so what they did was create rain, which muddied the trail and made it basically unusable for the Viet Cong. This operation of figuring out how to weaponize the weather was known as Operation Popeye. Once the Secretary of Defense admitted to using it in Vietnam, this became the first confirmed use of meteorological warfare. And so this brings me to modern day. This theory, which turned out to be true, has now gained resurgence. And this is all due to a program that was called the HAARP, not to be confused with the AARP, but it is short for High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. Now this program is run by the Air Force, the same institution that was doing the cloud seeding. And so you have a lot of people nowadays, whenever you have these natural disasters, who say, well, is it a true natural disaster, or it was maybe created for a reason?
I wanted to ask a couple questions here about HAARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. Several of you at the table have a little bit of a piece here. As you know, this is located up in Alaska. It's currently funded by the Air Force Research Lab. It was formerly funded by the Office of Naval Research. One of the prime customers is DARPA. I'm told by the president of the University of Alaska that the Air Force has pulled its support for the facility, and they're taking steps to demolish it or take it down this summer. A lot of folks here on the committee probably don't understand what HAARP does. I think most Alaskans don't really know what HAARP does or why the agency is involved in it. So a very brief explanation and then a more direct question. Would you be disappointed or would you lose something if HAARP were to go away?
Thank you, Senator. The Air Force has gotten great value out of HAARP in the past. We took over from the Navy and managed it and actually did a number of experiment campaigns up there and have finished our work that we're interested in doing up there. We've moving on to other ways of managing the ionosphere, which the HAARP was really designed to do, was to inject energy into the ionosphere to be able to actually control it. And but that work has been completed.
One of the things that HAARP has done is create the first artificial aurora in the world. And here are pictures of that. Okay, so that is the theory that the weather can be militarized and manipulated. That is my creepy conspiracies that turned out to be true video for you guys. It is pathetic. That's the word, pathetic, the amount of research I did for this video, and I don't even know if people are going to be interested in it. If you guys like it, that's great. If you don't, then you're probably not even listening to me right now because you didn't click on the video. So whatever. For those of you who did click, I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you liked it. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.